What are you waiting for? Life is full of waiting. And maybe right now what you're waiting for is some Christmas exchange to come in. Right? Maybe you got the t-shirt you wanted, but it was the wrong size, and so you had to send it back. Or maybe your gift came with a gift receipt, and you've exchanged it now for the thing you really wanted, but you're still waiting for it to be delivered. Hopefully you're not waiting at this point for your actual Christmas presents to come in, but I know how holiday deliveries can go, believe me. Maybe you're waiting for school to start. Maybe there's a college student here with us today who's stuck around for the holiday, and now you're sort of hoping for your friends to return so you can see them again. Or maybe you're a parent or a grandparent, and you've had a little extra time with the kids in the house, and you're kind of waiting for school to start too. But life is full of waiting. But there's a different kind of waiting that we do as well, a hopeful kind of waiting. Maybe you've been waiting for that career opportunity to open up for you, where your skill set will finally be aligned and recognized by an organization. Maybe where you'll even get to be your own manager or your own boss. Maybe you've been waiting for the one, that person you've been dreaming of ever since you were young, to come into your life, that romantic relationship. Or maybe in this season of life, you're simply waiting for your kids to grow up because you're sort of caught in the stressfulness and the busyness of this particular season of parenting little ones. Whatever it is, all of this kind of waiting, we imagine, when the time comes, we'll be free. Free from grinding it out. We'll finally have made it. Or free from loneliness. We've met that person, or maybe just free from the frustration and the stress of our limited experience right now. We all carry with us these overarching hopes. My question for you today is, what are you waiting for? Waiting. There was waiting in the text. No doubt for Mary and Joseph, Simeon and Anna, they all had things in their life that they were waiting for. From the mundane, Mary was the mother of a young child too, who would keep her on her toes. We'll see more of that next week. But maybe Mary was waiting for just a good night of sleep. And then he had Anna, the prophetess there in the temple at Jerusalem, who had been a widow for a long time, which meant that for her, in that time and place, she would have waited often on the community for support, right? For her daily bread, for provision. These people had to wait. But then there were the more meaningful things they were waiting for. Like for Mary, the birth of her firstborn child. And then even in the text we heard that they were waiting for the time of purification. Now what's that? The time of purification was a special ritual that we actually heard about in our first reading today from Exodus. When children were born, for boys it was on the 40th day, the parents were supposed to travel to Jerusalem, go up to the temple, and offer sacrifices on behalf of them. And in particular, for a firstborn child, a special sacrifice would be made to remind the Israelites how God had rescued them, how He had won freedom for them all those many centuries ago from Egypt, right? When God came with a mighty hand and an outstretched arm against Pharaoh and the Egyptians, delivering the people, but at a cost. Not to the Israelites, but to the Egyptians. Remember the final plague, the death of the firstborn? And so this ritual was to remind the people of that freedom won for them, but that came at a cost. Not to them, but the cost of that firstborn son. And so that's what Mary and Joseph we're waiting for, and now that day has come. But there's another kind of waiting that's going on in the text. A waiting that all four characters are experiencing, but that's explicitly shown us by Simeon and Anna, waiting for the consolation of Israel, the redemption of Jerusalem. Now, what on earth is that? Well, that connects to our second reading from the prophet Isaiah. Right? That's what he was talking about in those beautiful words that he spoke, that were penned, that later became that great Advent hymn, right? Number 347 in the hymnal. Comfort, comfort, ye my people. Speak ye peace, thus saith our God. Why? Because for the Israelite people, there was this hope. This hope that was contingent on the past, in particular God's activity in Egypt, but also articulated through history by the prophets about the kind of God that God was, a God of freedom, a God whose desire was to win freedom for his people. And so there was this hope that was based on the past but forward-facing for the Israelites, where they dreamed one day we're going to be free. Free from our enemies. Free from the oppressive rule of nations over us that frustrate and limit our experience. Free to live in the shalom, the wholeness of a community of love with our families. And all of those hopes were placed upon the coming of the Messiah. And while it's Simeon and Anna in our text who speak explicitly about this hope, this waiting, we know that Mary and Joseph were waiting too. We know it from Luke chapter 1. Right, remember when the angel Gabriel came to Mary and told Mary, hey, you're going to have a child, and this child is going to sit on the throne of his father David. You realize Mary didn't have any questions about that. How am I, as a virgin, going to have and conceive and bear a child? She had questions about that, but not about the identity of the child to be born to her, because she knew who Gabriel was talking about. He's going to be the Messiah. And Joseph, in Matthew chapter 1, when the angel commands him to stay with Mary, why does he obey? Why does he listen? Because the angel tells him, this baby to be born will be named Jesus, Yeshua, for he will save his people. The Messiah. That's who she's going to give birth to. And so this was the overarching hope for the Israelites, right? This is the very thing that shaped and colored all of their waiting, their experience of everything else. And that's why when Simeon sees this child, when he picks up this little infant, the Messiah, in his arms, he declares, now I can go in peace. I can now depart. The Greek word there, it's apoluo. It actually means to be set free. It's talking about a prisoner being released. Simeon says, now I can go free. And Simeon, there's no way he could have understood exactly how this Messiah was going to bring that for him. Right? There's no way he could have fathomed what that was going to look like, but he knew somehow, some way, all of his hopes, that freedom he longed for, was dependent on this little 40-day old baby boy. Lord, now you're letting your servant go in peace. That future hope had been realized. The Messiah, he's here. Christ is born. So how does that impact your waiting? How does that color or flavor things for you? What's the overarching hope in your life? Jesus is come. Don't let that pass you by, right? Christmas was just 4 days ago, and that's what we were celebrating, this reality. Don't let Christmas just be another holiday. Don't let it just be an isolated buzz. You know, there's a sign around here, a church sign, over on Montezuma. I think it might be the Methodist church, but I drive by it all the time, and I see it, and it says, Christmas is not just a holiday. It's a state of mind. And that's absolutely right. That's absolutely right. Christmas is not just another holiday. It is a reality. It's a daily wonder. Our hope is now here. Which is why the hope that we have is different from all of those Old Testament hopes, right? For all the Old Testament Israelites, even for Mary and Joseph and Simeon and Anna, they were always looking forward to what God was going to do someday. But as New Testament Christians, we have a different hope. Right? Do we still look forward to what God will do someday? Yes, we look forward to when Jesus will return, when he will usher in his kingdom. Absolutely. But that's not all we hope for. No. We have a present tense hope. We have a living hope because Jesus has come now. What has been foretold has been fulfilled. Emmanuel, God is dwelling among us. So how does that change? How does Jesus' presence affect your waiting? Now, I know what I want to make sure I'm clear about is that it doesn't mean we don't wait anymore. Right? There's still waiting for all of us, right? Maybe you still have to wait at Walmart when you're shopping over the holidays, or you don't have a fast pass now to the front of every line. It doesn't even mean you won't have to wait in the hospital, right? That's very much a part of our experience. We sit in that waiting room. And does Jesus' presence affect those kinds of waitings? Yeah, it does, actually. Especially if we find ourselves getting, ill-tempered or very impatient. Jesus can change our experience of even that kind of waiting, that menial waiting. But that's not what I'm focused on today. I'm thinking about those bigger hopes, those more meaningful things that we're waiting for. What is that overarching hope you have in your life right now? And maybe it is that career opportunity. If so, have you brought God in on the plans? Have you consulted Him, and not just business partners, but God on this particular hope that you have or opportunity that may present itself? Like, is God a part of that decision process? Is He part of the conversation? Or if you're hoping for the one, right? Same question. Is God involved? Are you considering His direction for you in regards to that relationship? If you are looking at this point, you don't have anyone who's kind of around, are you asking, hey God, this is a desire of my heart. Would you lead me to the person you would have for me? Or if you're already in a relationship, are you considering your relationship to God in that relationship? Asking Him to help you sort through those conversations and that vetting process, that figuring out, do we fit? Is this a good match? I want it to be not only right with me and this other person, but right with you, God. The reasons I want to focus on these questions is because it's not the trivial, the mundane, or even the obviously wrong that most threatens our relationship with Jesus. It's actually the bigger things, the more meaningful things, the places where we actually place our hope, that are most threatening for us, that are most likely to draw us away from God. That when the rubber hits the road, if we have to choose between one or the other, might actually sever us from God. So often we're looking for consolation, for comfort, but in the wrong category. We're looking for redemption, but our redemptive scope is too small. Right? Maybe we think it's a big thing. We think, oh, if I have that, then I'll be free. But so often what happens is as soon as we get that, the vacuum is filled and something else takes its place. And we're still parched, we're still dry, we're still not experiencing that freedom, that rest, the consolation that we're all pining for. What if the deepest desires of our hearts, those overarching hopes that we have to experience freedom in whatever category, what if they too were dependent on this 40-day-old infant? And maybe that sounds crazy. How do you think Simeon looked when he picked up this baby boy from his parents and started spilling out his soul, articulating his hopes that he saw fulfilled in this child? You know, the text said that Mary and Joseph marveled at him. That can mean to be sort of in awe and wonder. It could also mean to be disturbed. Simeon probably looked a little goofy. But we know that Simeon saw, he believed that he had actually held in his hands the very thing he had dreamt of all his life. He was looking in the right place. But what if we've been looking for freedom in all the wrong places? Looking for love, searching. Maybe right now God is searching your heart, helping you to pinpoint what you've been holding on to, clinging to. You know, what did Simeon say about the working of God through Jesus? He said that the thoughts of many hearts would be revealed. God is working to expose the desires of our hearts. And then he said, a sword will pierce through your own soul. Well, maybe today that sword is the reality that the things we've hoped for haven't panned out. That they've left us wanting, that we've been clinging to a mirage. Or maybe the sword today means that to really trust Jesus means relocating some of these dreams we have to Him. Giving Him space to help determine and chart our path, right? At least include Him in the process. Right? Maybe it means to say, hey, you know, I know that I want this, God, but what do you have for me? And then to release that tight fist and be open to His direction, even if it's not even close to the plan that you had. It's hard to give that up. That will feel like a sword, and yet we know that His plan is for our best good. Even here, even now, the consolation of Israel has come. Your God and King is present now. And what is He working in your life? Peace, goodwill, and yet a sword, a cost. There's often something we must give up that will be painful to depart from, to experience fully the goodness of God. Maybe it's a hope, a dream, a plan. Maybe it is a behavior, and one that you're well aware of. But know this, whatever the cost, it pales in comparison to what it cost Him. Think about the working of God in Jesus' life. How would this peace and goodwill come? How would the consolation of Israel be completed, not just for Simeon and Anna and Mary and Joseph, but for you and for me? A sword, piercing His own soul. The sword of God's righteous wrath coming down upon Jesus. The sword that brought division, not just between the thoughts and intentions of the heart, but brought division between Jesus and His Father, real separation from God. Jesus experienced the warfare that our sin has brought, so that you and I could experience the peace of God, the shalom, so that you and I could really be free. The Messiah is born. Jesus is here. What are you waiting for? Amen.